Uprising takes place during the turbulent late 16th century, amid the chaos brought on by Japan's invasion of Korea. Directed by a talented filmmaker, the movie follows the intense journey of two childhood friends whose paths are drastically altered by war, betrayal, and their differing ideals. The film is a deep exploration of loyalty, honor, and the human cost of revolution, centered on the formation of the Righteous Army, a resistance group that rises up against the occupying forces and a corrupt, failing monarchy. The movie opens with the invasion of Korea by the Japanese military under Toyotomi Hideyoshi, signaling the onset of a brutal war. As Korea is thrown into disarray, King Seonjo, in fear for his life, abandons the capital, leaving his country to fend for itself. This failure in leadership sets the stage for a societal collapse, and it is in this vacuum of power that our protagonist, Cheon Yeong, comes into focus. Cheon Yeong, born into a noble family, finds himself sold into slavery after his family is ruined. Forced into servitude for his childhood friend Jong-ryeo's family, Cheon Yeong suffers under the oppressive social system, but quietly harbors a deep yearning for justice. Jong-ryeo, the son of the noble family, becomes a foil to Cheon Yeong, a man caught between loyalty to his heritage and the rapidly growing disillusionment with the state's failure to protect the people. Through Cheon Yeong's hardships, the audience is introduced to the stark class divides and the rampant injustices of feudal Korea. Cheon Yeong secretly trains in martial arts, determined to become strong enough to protect himself and fight back. Over the years, his skills in combat grow, and he becomes a formidable figure despite his low status. This marks the beginning of Cheon Yeong's transformation, foreshadowing his eventual rise as a leader of the Righteous Army. As Japan's invasion intensifies, the Korean people find themselves abandoned by their king, and the already oppressed lower classes begin to form resistance groups. These groups, initially small and disorganized, slowly gain strength as they band together under a single cause: to rid Korea of the invading forces and take back their sovereignty. Among the leaders of this movement is Cheon Yeong, who steps forward as a natural leader despite his former status as a servant. His drive for justice, coupled with his tactical brilliance and martial skills, makes him an invaluable asset to the resistance. Jong-ryeo, on the other hand, remains loyal to the crown, torn between his noble duty to the king and the realization that his people are suffering. The rift between him and Cheon Yeong begins to widen as they are drawn into different sides of the conflict. Jong-ryeo's internal struggle intensifies as he watches the destruction of his homeland. Despite his loyalty to the king, he begins to question the value of supporting a monarchy that has not protected its citizens. The king's abandonment of the capital and his lack of leadership cause Jong-ryeo to grow disillusioned with the feudal system, but he remains hesitant to abandon his birthright and honor. The film delves into the psychological toll of war, showcasing the toll it takes on both individuals and the collective psyche of a nation. As Cheon Yeong rises to prominence within the Righteous Army, he becomes more than just a fighter. He becomes a symbol of hope for the oppressed masses. His journey is marked by personal sacrifices, including the loss of loved ones and the heavy burden of leadership. The Righteous Army, once a group of disparate rebels, becomes a formidable force under Cheon Yeong's command. He inspires loyalty and courage in his soldiers, many of whom are farmers, laborers, and former slaves who have never before held a sword. Meanwhile, Jong-ryeo is caught in a moral quandary. His commitment to his king leads him to make difficult decisions, including participating in the king's strategy of offering limited resistance to the Japanese invaders in hopes of preserving the monarchy. As the Righteous Army grows stronger, Jong-ryeo becomes increasingly conflicted about his allegiance to the crown. His loyalty to the king blinds him to the true needs of his country, and he becomes an increasingly tragic figure, torn between his social responsibilities and his own growing doubts. The movie's central theme revolves around the conflict between loyalty to one's nation, family, and ideals. Cheon Yeong's decision to join the Righteous Army and fight for the liberation of Korea is a direct response to the failures of the aristocracy, the monarchy, and the societal structure. His battle is not just against foreign invaders, but against a system that has allowed the suffering of its own people. Jong-ryeo, on the other hand, represents the ideals of feudal loyalty, one that values the protection of the monarchy and the status quo. His unwillingness to break away from his noble birthright becomes his undoing as the world around him collapses. As the movie progresses, the confrontation between these two childhood friends becomes inevitable. Their personal conflict is mirrored by the escalating violence on the battlefield. In an intense and emotionally charged sequence, Jong-ryeo betrays Cheon Yeong, siding with the king's forces in a final effort to protect his family's honor and secure his place in the New World Order. This betrayal strikes deep for Cheon Yeong, who views Jong-ryeo as a brother. The emotional weight of this moment cannot be understated, as it highlights the devastating cost of war, not just in terms of physical destruction, but also in the rupture of personal relationships. With the betrayal hanging heavily over him, Cheon Yeong leads his troops into a fierce battle against the Japanese forces. The stakes are higher than ever, and both sides are determined to achieve victory. Cheon Yeong's tactical brilliance shines through, as he leads the righteous army through a series of strategic maneuvers that initially gain them the upper hand. The battle scenes are intense, filled with visceral action and emotional moments, showing the depth of sacrifice on both sides. Despite their best efforts, the righteous army faces tremendous odds. They are vastly outnumbered and lack the resources of the invading forces. However, Cheon Yeong's leadership keeps them fighting, and they manage to secure a critical victory in a pivotal battle. The victory, however, comes at a great cost. Cheon Yeong himself is injured, and many of his men perish in the fight. The aftermath of the battle is a moment of reflection for the protagonist, who surveys the devastation and contemplates the nature of war. In the final act of the movie, Cheon Yeong's journey comes full circle. The righteous army's victory over the Japanese invaders is bittersweet, as the war has left deep scars on the land and its people. Cheon Yeong, now a war-weary leader, reflects on the personal sacrifices he has made for his country and the price of his victory. His final confrontation with Jong-ryeo, though tragic, represents the culmination of their divergent paths, one driven by loyalty to the old order, and the other by a desire for justice and freedom. The emotional weight of their battle leaves a lasting impact on the viewer, as it underscores the film's core message that the pursuit of justice often comes at great personal cost. The movie concludes with Cheon Yeong reflecting on the legacy of the righteous army. While the war may have ended, the fight for justice and equality is far from over. Cheon Yeong's leadership, his courage, and his sacrifice inspire future generations to continue the struggle for a better world. The film ends on a note of quiet melancholy, acknowledging the losses incurred, but also celebrating the resilience of those who fought for what they believed in. Uprising is a poignant and powerful narrative about the human cost of war, the destruction of personal bonds, and the resilience of the human spirit in the face of oppression. Through Cheon Yeong's journey, the film explores the complexities of loyalty, justice, and the moral choices faced by individuals in times of crisis. The film's rich character development and sweeping battle sequences make it a gripping and emotional experience, one that resonates long after the credits roll.